Hey, everybody, and welcome to the My Father Said podcast, where we talk all things faith, finance, and family. I'm one of your hosts, Ryan. I am a father and a son.
Hey, everybody, I am Robert. I am Ryan's dad, and I am also a son. We are welcoming you to our podcast today. Last week, we interviewed Ryan interviewed me, rather, about my past, how I got to where I am. This week, we're going to turn the tables, and I'm going to interview Ryan about himself, learn some things that perhaps I didn't know as his dad, and I might even drop a bombshell or two tonight that he wasn't expecting either.
Why, yes, I would love a raise. First order of business. I'll take a raise.
Well, Ryan, let's get to it so that the folks out here can know a little bit more about you and myself. As a child, as you were growing up, you were obviously doing things that all young kids do. You were playing with your brother, playing with the neighbors, going back and forth to school, just doing things any person would grow up. But somewhere along the line, you had to make a decision about what was I going to do for a living. And of course, there's influences in your life that helps make you kind of steer in one direction, steer away from another direction. So I want to ask the question, growing up in our household, what was it like having a financial advisor as a father, and how did that shape your views on money?
Yeah, great question. So first off, let me say my parents never beat me. They never did. I am not being forced to say this either. I am doing this on my own fruition. How did that sound? Does that sound good?
You need to say it a little more like it's not so rigid. Say it like it actually, you mean it.
I didn't get beat, I promise. Okay. So I think that growing up, for the most part, I would have, what anybody would consider a normal childhood. Like you said, me and Ethan would play a lot. We got along great. We were getting involved in churches and getting involved at school and stuff. All in all, I think it was a normal childhood, aside from the fact that you and Mom, I think, intentionally were dropping nuggets of information and educating us in the area of finance, where the majority of people my age and in our area probably weren't getting that at home. What I mean by that is I can distinctly remember growing up and you and Mom giving me and Ethan an allowance. And I remember from a young age, you would say something along the lines of, hey, if I give you $1, take 10 cents, put it in a savings account, something like that. Early formative stuff with saving money. Now, we never listened, but we were still getting that information from you guys. I remember that, and that was a consistent thing that you guys would do, would be to continue to tell us to save that kind of money. The other stuff was, as we got older, you and Mom would encourage us to read different things and educate ourselves. I remember, for example, a specific would be The Richest Man in Babylon. For years, you have been telling us to read that book, and it even got to the point where you were saying, hey, read that once a quarter, something like that. Just, foundational information in that book. Continue to do it. And you were telling me to do that before I even got into that industry. So I remember that and doing just different things at the house where you would tell us information that, we weren't getting taught at school, and we certainly weren't learning from other people our age. I remember from a young age, you told us that if we wanted to make money in life, and you might remember this, we either needed to be a professional athlete, professional entertainer, own a business, or work with computers. I do not have the height or the talent to do the first two, and I do not have to do the brains to do the fourth. But owning a business, we're working on that one. So I remember learning that, and you may even remember when I was, 5, 6 years old, something like that, you would take me to the flea market, and we would sell stuff. I remember those being the first dollars I made, and that was not in and of myself, because no 5-year-old is, hey, let's go to the flea market and sell my stuff. But I was, found out that you can make money doing that.
What I remember about that event is not only did you go sell your stuff, but you never paid for the stuff that you sold to begin with. So you literally made 1,000% profit.
Love it.
It's incredible. It's incredible.
What a great country we live in. It's the best. Capitalism at its finest.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I remember that. And then, last week you were talking about how when me and Ethan got old enough to drive and play sports, you didn't push us to go get a job. We talked about the importance of being in the extracurricular activities and being on a sports team. Mm-hmm. And I remember we did that, but then during the summers, me and Ethan started that lawn care business. And I remember we did that for a while. And again, that was not in and of myself. We didn't have that idea on our own. That was just something that we picked up talking with you and listening to you. So I remember things like that, whereas the other people that we were going to school with or associating with, they weren't starting businesses, they weren't saving money and whatnot. It was just, hey, we're kids. So those are some of the stuff. I also remember very early on you telling me and Ethan that you and Mom were paying extra on the mortgage. And I didn't know what a mortgage was, but I remember you had said that. And I remember when I was still living at home and you guys paid off the house, I remember how excited y'all were and proud you were. And so from an early age, it was, hey, pay extra, get out of that debt. That's just what you do. That was all I saw growing up. I remember that, and I remember that you guys would drive a vehicle into the dirt before you went and got a new one. I remember that. And so I remember that. And then I think one of my favorite memories when it comes to just finance was, early on you told me and Ethan, hey, credit cards are bad. Yeah. They can be a tool, but the majority of people, it hurts them. It's bad. And I remember when you guys would get like credit card solicitations or whatever in the mail, you would let me and Ethan cut them up over the trash can. I vividly remember that. And fun fact, that is something that me and Alexia still do. Whenever we get one, we'll cut it up over the trash, and that's probably something we're going to do for Hazel and our other daughter that's on the way. So those are some of the big things, or I guess really just small, consistent things that we saw that started to shape just our attitude towards finances.
That's good. So I'm listening to you talk, and you're bringing back memories that had gone into deep recesses of my mind, and I hadn't brought them up again until you've said this. And your lawn care business, I want to speak to our audience again about the lawn care business and the entrepreneurial spirit that Ryan developed. You see, it was my truck, not his truck that he drove. It was my trailer that hauled my lawnmower and my gasoline that he used, and he made, again, a lot of profit, he and his brother. Dad, that'd be me, I got nothing. I got nothing out of it. I had to replace tires, I had to replace belts, I had to replace blades. Somehow or another, in this episode of My Father Said, I think I'm losing out on this deal. I really do. I think I'm losing out on this deal here. But we'll talk about that later. So, Ryan, let me ask you this question, since you're talking about the upbringing and your formative years. Share with us your educational journey, and in particular, how that journey prepared you for the work that you have settled on today.
Yeah. So education, honest truth, and I kind of alluded to this earlier, my education, I don't think prepared me at all for what I'm doing now. I solely think that was a burden that you and Mom carried. In school, you learn trigonometry, geometry, Pythagorean's theorem, but we don't learn the first thing about credit, savings accounts, they pay your taxes or you go to jail. Nobody talks about that. So as far as high school went, I don't think that taught me anything for this industry. And then even in college, I don't think that there was a lot in college that drove me to this. But what I will say that I picked up from college, and you remember this because you and I had a hard conversation about it, but my first year at Charleston Southern, I went down there, I was having a good time, I was playing around, and almost flunked out of college. I think I had a 1.8 GPA.
I don't know if you wanted to tell the public that. You're running a business now, and we're independent of our clients. And
hey, life lessons. We'll get to the point. But no, what I was saying was, high school didn't teach me much. Got into college, just played around, and then when I had that bad first year and we lost some of those scholarships, that's probably the biggest thing I learned in college was, hey, you've made a mistake. It's going to cost you money. And me and Alexi were paying for that mistake for years, repaying those student loans and stuff. So I think that was kind of a wake-up call towards the end of college where I'm thinking, my gosh, I got to pay these back. And the majority of this is my fault because I came down here and I jerked around my freshman year. So we're having to pay that back. So I don't think college or high school in itself prepared me for what I'm doing now. I think you and Mom did that. And then just in college, I had some hard-nosed life lessons that came from my own mistakes. So.
Okay. So did I hear you, in summary, say, in essence, that post-secondary education is a waste of time for you and we spent a lot of money for no reason?
Absolutely. College is a waste of time and a waste of money. Absolutely. Except, let me back up just a little bit. I did meet my wife there. Super important. There's no dollar. Lexia, if you're listening to this, I love you. You're beautiful. No amount of money is too much for you. I'd go to college 1,000 times over. But aside from that, I think it's a waste of time and a waste of money.
I think what we're going to need to do is we're going to have to ask our engineer, Scott, if he will delete some of those pauses and hesitations in that last statement just for the perseverance of your marriage, to make sure that continues along. So speaking of that, before coming to work with us here and becoming part of the practice, did you explore other career paths? And if so, what led you back to the area of finance?
Yeah. So even in college, I was starting to look at some different career paths. I don't know if you remember this, but it was either the end of my freshman year or maybe even sophomore year. You and I were going to the different military recruiters down in Charleston.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
So I tried, I think all in all, from the time I in college to after, I think I tried to join four branches, and for whatever reason, those doors never opened for me. I was never able to do that. And so I know that going into having that desire to do some sort of public service, I ended up landing on the fire department. And so I graduated from Charleston Southern and then joined the fire department down in Charleston. Came up to the South Carolina State Fire Academy, which is 30 minutes away from us over on Monticello. I did that. I think the academy was about 8-10 weeks, something like that. And then I did the fire department for about a year and then decided to leave there and come do finance. The thing that I guess made me realize that I wanted to come back to finance or go to finance instead was I remember growing up having you and Mom home. I remember the career that you had. Mom didn't have to work. And if she did work, it was because she wanted to. Like when we were in high school, she would help out at the school and stuff just out of the goodness of her heart. It wasn't that she had to go and work. So I remember that Mom didn't have to work if she didn't want to. I remember that, and I remember you being home basically every day, unless you were going on one of your motorcycle trips across the country. Other than that, you were at the house. I remember that you, specifically for me, because I don't know if this was with Ethan, but there was not a single sports game that I ever participated in that you weren't there. I remember that. And that was year round. That was baseball, basketball, and soccer. And so I remember one day when we were in the fire department, when I was at the fire department, I was listening to another guy talk, and he made the comment. He said, the fire department is a wonderful career if you're a single person and you don't plan to get married. He said, but you don't make any money in the fire department, and if you decide to go and start a family, get married and have kids, you're going to have to go and get another job. And he said, you're going to spend more time away from your family than you ever will with them. And that wasn't the way that I grew up, and that's not what I wanted for my kids. And so that was what ended up, I guess, forcing my hand. And so we came up here.
Good deal. So you decided to try what Dad did for a living to see if you could do what Dad did for a living on your own. Why did you choose to come to work with Dad at the Templeton Group instead of going to work with another firm or a bank or any place like that?
What kind of a father would fire his own son, right? Hey, we already talked about it earlier. I was selling his stuff at the flea market. I was using his gas in his truck. Let's make it 3 for 3. No, I knew that you were a businessman. I knew that you were really no nonsense when it came to a lot of the aspects in your life. And so I knew that you ran a good business. So if I was going to get into this industry, you were someone that I knew, someone that I trusted, someone that had honestly a very good reputation in this area. And so I thought to myself, hey, if I'm going to go do it and I'm going to trust somebody with this to kind of raise me up in this, who better than Dad? And so, that's
well, leading into that, obviously you're coming in the door as someone who is green, and you're coming into an industry that you're having to learn as you go through the process of getting your credentials, your licenses, and those things that are necessary to do this. And then in addition to that, you're working in the family environment. Mm-hmm. Dad is now boss. So I guess I would ask you, how was that transition, and were there any unexpected challenges that popped up that caught you off guard, and how did you have to adjust for them?
So let me say this. I will say that the licensing was hard. Some of the hardest exams that I've ever taken, and coming into this industry from the fire department, it was like learning another language. So the licensing was hard. Transitioning into working with you and in a family environment, honest to goodness, that was easier than I thought it was going to be. And that's probably because, for those of you that don't know that out there, you have been in a position of authority in numerous aspects of my life. You know, obviously you are my father, you always have been. But when you became a pastor, you were my pastor for years. Also in high school, when we were playing baseball, you were my baseball coach from the 7th grade until I graduated. So you have been in a position of authority, or a position where you're calling me up, I guess, or pushing me in a direction in more than one aspect in my life. And so coming into a professional environment, yes, it was different than playing baseball and being my pastor and stuff, but just it was natural to come in and say, all right, this is what I'm going to do. Dad says this. Dad's never led me down the wrong path. So I would say the transition itself was easy, or not as hard as I thought it was going to be. The licensing, that was the hard stuff.
Okay, good. Glad to hear that. So now that you're in the industry, and you have been with the industry now, how many years? 5, 6, 7?
2019, so 4 years. Yeah.
4 years. God, see, I manage money, but I cannot count. Don't hold that against me. But you've been in the industry now for 4 years. You came right at the introduction of COVID, when everything shut down, and we had to start learning how to do work differently than what we've done for years prior. When I say we, I'm talking about myself and people of my tenure. You came in and basically had 6 or 7 months of normal work environment. And then after that, you had the COVID times. And now we're back into normal work environment, whatever that might be. But during that time and working with clients, obviously you develop some particulars. You develop a particular mindset, a way to do strategy, I guess is a way to say this. So I guess I would ask you this. How do you describe Ryan Templeton's management philosophy? And based off of what you have learned from myself and some of our colleagues, would you say it's similar to or different than what you see in myself?
Yeah, I would say that our investment philosophy is pretty similar. I know that we'll use different words to sometimes describe the same thing, but the philosophy that I grew up with was the philosophy that you basically raised me with, and so that's kind of stuck with me. But I mean, the philosophy has been, put first things first. What's important, have that be the important thing. Handle that first. Stick with a plan. Set a goal. Work towards that goal. Spend less than you make. The phrase is live below your means. I like just spend less than you make. That sounds better. But I mean, that would be the philosophy. The first things first. If you've got family that's dependent on you, you need to make that the priority number one. If you want to retire one day, hey, we need to make a plan and we need to reverse engineer from that, but you got to stick to the plan. And then set a goal, and whatever that goal is, when things get hard, you make your life fit around that goal. You don't make the goal adjust to your life. And so I think we're pretty similar as far as the investment philosophy goes.
Good. So did I hear you say that you have a financial plan?
I do have a financial plan.
Does your financial plan involve inheritance?
No.
That's the right answer, because your mother and I are going to spend every nickel. So make sure
you're not going to leave anything for Hazel?
Well, that's different.
I'm going to show her this when she's old enough to understand this.
That is different. Well, obviously in our industry, we have all kind of tools that we utilize. And I would say to you, when working with clients, what methods or tools do you think are most effective for clients when they're working with a financial planner such as yourself?
Yeah. So there are a lot of great tools out there for individuals who want to do it themselves, individuals that want to work with a planner. I think that there are a lot of great tools out there. So much so that sometimes you can get inundated with how much noise there is. I think the biggest tools aren't even really tools when it comes to individuals working with a planner, and they are education and they are buy-in. You can have the greatest analytics, you can have the greatest market trends, understand all of that, but if you're not working with a plan and you're not buying into that plan, anytime the wind blows, you're liable to move in a different direction. So I would say the first one is buy-in, and then the second one is education. You don't know what you don't know. I think you said that in our last podcast. You don't know what you don't know. And so the best way to do that is to find credible sources out there that have made material and just read it, listen to it, whatever it is, to try and expand that vocabulary, learn a little bit more. But I would stand by this, that I think the two biggest things is buying into something and sticking with it, and then just educating yourself along the way.
Gotcha. So on our podcast, my father said we focus on 3 areas: faith, finance, and family. And we have mentioned in our previous podcast, and now we mentioned it again in this podcast, that faith is central to everything that we do. The time we get up in the morning, throughout the day, to the time we lay our head down at night on the pillow. Our social circle is involved with people such as that. And we have these influences that we utilize throughout our lives as we make our decisions. However, as a financial planner, sitting in the seat that you're sitting in when you're talking to clients. Not all clients we recognize have faith. Okay? Many of our clients do because they know who we are and they want to be around people who they feel believe similarly or the same thing. But nonetheless, I'm curious about yourself. Do you find any synergies between faith and financial management in your work?
Yes, I do. So, Scripture talks about being good stewards of what we're given. Scripture talks about taking care of your family. And so I think we are in a position to help individuals do that, whether they're believers or not. I think really and truthfully, even if someone's not a believer, they want to take care of their family. They want to do what's right by them, and they want to be able to leave a legacy. Now, whether or not they're believers, that still ties into some of the things we see in Scripture. So I think we can position ourselves to believers, to non-believers, that we can help them do just that. Put first things first, make sure that the family's taken care of, build up a nest egg so that if something happens to them, the family's taken care of, and then, the money that they're making, being good stewards of that, setting aside some for the future, giving some to their church, and if they're not believers, giving it to something else. So I think that there is a lot of tie-in that goes to that for us as the advisors and also the individuals that we're working with.
Gotcha. So one of the reasons why we created this podcast is because we wanted our audience, our clients and our prospective clients and friends and everyone else, we wanted them to learn more about us, who we were as individuals and the philosophy behind our company. I wanted to do this simply because I want Ryan to be introduced to the world as well. You see, one day Ryan will be taking over this company when I step aside. One day, don't get in a hurry, all right? But one day when I step aside, you see, when I started in this industry many years ago, my hair was only one color. You notice it's got a different color to it. I look very much like him, but I didn't have my face hidden as well as he does his. One day Ryan would be taking over the Templeton Group, and that's going to be, sooner than later, just because that's how life happens. So I'm real curious, Ryan, when you do step in and take over, even though you're practically running the company now, when you do officially take over, where do you see the Templeton Group being in the next 5 to 10 years under your leadership, under your vision?
Yeah, so ideally what I would like to do is we've already got one individual that we're bringing on board going through the licensing process so that we can better serve our existing clients and any future clients that we bring on. I think in the next 5 to 10 years, ideally we would have 1 or 2 more advisors to just help service our clients as best we can. I think we would do that. And then you and I have even kicked around the idea of maybe one day going and buying an actual commercial building and saying, hey, this is the Templeton Group. I think we do that in the next 5 to 10 years, but we'll see.
Can I ask a question? Based on your track record and you and I together, is that we buying a building or I'm buying a building and you're using it?
You can retire anytime you want after you buy the building.
Incredible. I don't mind. Incredible. I have no idea what I've done. So let me ask you this. Now that you're in this arena of self-employment, which is where you work all the time and kind of set your schedule at the same time, being at your age now, being a young father with another daughter on the way very soon, how do you manage your work-life balance, especially in a family-run business?
So that was a little bit harder than I thought it was going to be. We're not employees. So, if we worked a 9 to 5, we just clock out, go home, do whatever it is, and then come back. With us being business owners, 1099, if we make a mistake, we're going to feel that. That has been a little bit harder to cut that off when we get home. And so one of the things that I've had to do is when I am done with work for today and I'm with Alexia and Hazel and the daughter-to-be, I have to cut my phone off, put it somewhere else, and then just spend time with them. But it is something that you have to constantly struggle against. But if there is something that we absolutely need to talk about during the weekend or something like that, I can always just tell you to come play with your granddaughter, and then when you get there, I can just dump it all on you then. So if we really need to talk about it, we can find a way.
That's great. All right, so what is the most valuable financial lesson that you have learned so far from either me or through your own experiences to date?
I think it's going to be very similar to the tools that we were talking about for our clients. I think it would be, set hard goals for yourself, take hard steps, build a plan, stick to the plan, make your life fit around that. Very practically, if that means, hey, I want to, for my plan to work, I need to put away 20% of my income, if that's what it is. And now I've got some disposable income and I want to go buy another car, but it would bump my saving down below that 20%, that hard goal that I've got. Then you don't buy the car. You got to make hard decisions, set goals, and then take those hard steps. I think that would be the biggest piece of advice. Okay.
So Mr. Certified Financial Planner, which means that you are someone that has a depth of knowledge that separates you from the majority of financial advisors who carry that title throughout the state, not just our community, but this state. So with that depth of knowledge, that level of knowledge, are there any final thoughts? And I do have one question after this, but are there any final thoughts or advice you'd like to share with our listeners today about financial management?
Yeah, so I would say final thoughts are have a circle of advisors. Work with your financial advisor, work with a financial planner, have a trusted CPA that you work with, have someone that you trust with your state documents, your wills and things like that. Have those centers of influence that are educated in an area, and just keep them in the loop. That would be one of the biggest pieces of advice, is have that circle of advisors. And then again, work with an advisor, stick to a plan, don't listen to the noise, and then just educate yourself.
That is great. All right. So I want you to know, and I'm going to say this in front of the hundreds, the thousands, the millions that's going to be listening to this podcast between now and eternity.
It's just Mom.
Yeah. But I want you to know that your mother and I are extremely proud of the man that you have become, and your brother, that y'all have become, the husbands that y'all have become, you yourself being a father. We couldn't be more pleased, and our pride is hard to contain it. And we're excited where the future is going to take you. So I want you to know that if you ever wondered in your life, did I make Mom and Dad proud? Well, just take that out of your mind, because you have. Now I've got one question to ask you, and I want you to carefully consider your answer. Several years ago, you, Dustin, Ethan were in Bowling Town. Do you want me to continue asking the question?
And what do you know? We are out of time. Would you believe that? I plead the fifth. Dustin and Ethan, if you are listening to this, vow of silence. I didn't say a word.
Okay, guys, that's the show today. I'm Robert.
And I'm Ryan.
We're so glad you're here today. We look forward to seeing you at our next podcast. Our Father said, we're out of here.
All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Ryan.
Hey, and I'm Robert.
For more information, check us out on our website and follow us on social media.
The opinions voiced in this video are for general information only and are not specific advice or recommendations for any individual. All performance reference is historical and is no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. Economic forecasts set forth may not develop as predicted, and there can be no guarantee that strategies promoted will be successful.